Okay, so that brings me back to social media. And everybody's trying to figure out how to do it, and no one knows quite how, and they keep saying, are we there yet, right? I read an article in the McKinsey Quarterly, and in fact, I put it up on our Facebook page. And what they called social media was an enigma wrapped in a riddle. And all of these companies, all of these very senior executives, they have Facebook pages. They're tweeting, and they don't know why. And they don't know what to do with it, and they don't know how to figure out if it's working. That is a real dilemma, and that's the dilemma of being in this tectonic shift that I've been talking about. So now I want to dig into some of the concepts behind how social media works. And I'll do a few concepts with each of the different tools. The first is the social graph. Who has heard of a social graph? Anybody wager a guess? Okay. A social graph simply means a picture of all of your relationships. It's a map. And on the internet, it's everyone and everything that's connected. The person that coined it or made it more of a household name in technology circles is Zuckerberg. And he said, you know, Facebook, all I want to do is be the social graph for everybody. And in 2007 or 2008, when they introduced a platform for applications, they did it with the idea of leveraging the social graph. They wanted to make certain that no one would ever leave Facebook. You could stay there, you could call your friends, you could have conference, you could do anything you wanted. And you could always stay with them. And they thought that was a fine idea. And of course, they scared the living daylights out of Google, which around that time announced that there would be a president's shift so that Eric's last name, Schmitz, thank you, who had been the CEO for 10 years, stepped down. Sergey Brin stepped into the job. Was it Sergey or Larry Page? Sorry, Larry Page stepped in because they wanted to go after this. And Google has a real problem. Their strength is search. Their strength is not social. And while we will touch on Google Plus, my heart goes out to them because they've got a real dilemma. And all of these companies, particularly the giant ones, they start off with a business model and a plan, and sometimes you can't flip it over. You're not social or you are. Anyway, that was Zuckerberg's idea, and it was a brilliant idea. And it's what is driving a lot of what's going on today. The underlying theory for social networks is network effects. And the idea is that if I have one phone, I can't do very much with it. But if I have two phones, you and I can talk. And if our friends have phones, we can really get together and we can chat back and forth. And that network effect simply says, for every friend of mine, I add 2 more friends, they add 3 more friends. We have a party. And that's a social network. That's the power of the social network. Social networks enable you to amplify reach, right? And so when you want to leverage your friends and their friends and their friends and their friends, social networking has a real advantage. There may be other things that you use depending on your business objective. Pierre was talking about the fact that he wanted to go to a very targeted area. Now, Twitter is a tool that sort of broadcasts to the world. But if you know what you're doing on Twitter, you can actually telescope some of it down. Or maybe you want to talk to the world that you know on Facebook, all right? And so, anyway, amplifying network effects is something that is the tool that powers social media and gives us results that we may never have envisioned, whether it was Obama's first election or the Arab Spring or what's been going on in Haiti. It gets the world involved in trying to get behind an issue. So we talked about the 20/80 rule, which is sort of the rule of marketing. And now we get to the thing of the internet, and their rule is the 1% rule. And what does that mean? What that means is, on any Twitter site, Facebook page, blog, 1% of the people that engage with you, 1% will be the people that engage with you and even better create content. And if you don't know that, you may think there's no one there. But what they're trying to basically say is the vast majority of people on any tool are lurkers. And the way you find out about them is not because they're commenting or interacting, but it's because you're checking your analytics. You know who visits your site. You know how many people have come to your blog. You can take a look at who's coming. You can learn from that. Okay, so I deal with lots of companies that have to do social media and in their heart of hearts don't want to. I deal with other companies that like the idea. But they have some good reasons, right? They have some good reasons. They're afraid of the legal liability. I'm talking to a big utility in Texas, and they're frightened about what's going to happen. They have compliance. They have all sorts of regulations. They're terrified about losing control. They think, all of their employees are going to go and either do damage or waste a lot of time, and they might. They don't know what its value is, and then they're fearful of the technical aspects. And while all of these things don't go away, I want to tell you that there are things that wise companies can do, wise individuals can do, to sort of compensate for those fears. The first thing is, I wish I had a nickel for every person that came to me who had already put up a Facebook page or a Twitter site, didn't know what they were doing, and then asked for help. And that's the wrong way to go about it, right? The right way to go about it, particularly if you're an organization, even if your organization is only 5 people, right, is to set up corporate guidelines. And they don't have to be, these big official things if you're only 5 people, but you've got to talk about it. Why? Because some employee wishing you well will go out and say something that you may not want them to say. And this is out of goodness of the heart, right? So in bigger companies, you have to define who's allowed to speak on which of the platforms. You need to provide a framework so that things don't go awry. And that reduces a lot of the uncertainty. You need to define what wasting time is. There is no control on the internet. Although I must laugh, a lot of companies do an awfully good job of muzzling it. And I'll show you an example or two before we're through. And so I have people come to me and say, well, we want to get involved in social media, but we don't want any negative feedback. And we don't want any criticism. And, and we don't want any other blogs that come out after us either. And of course, that's impossible, right? But it's not impossible to respond to. And sometimes it can really be an opportunity.